I love my beech hedge, just been trimmed, but of course it has that lovely green all the way through the summer, and then we have the autumn shades, yellows and russets, and then of course the natural brown through the winter, and then the lovely new growth. But you know, when you have a hedge, if you plant right close to it at the base, trimming is quite difficult. And I think I may have the answer that not only settles the hedge trimming, but also deals with what is quite a fashionable move, and that is garden decorating. Apparently bedding out is old-fashioned and not completely understood, and so I've tried to do an example of decorating here. Everything you see, with the exception of the tree, is in pots or containers. And so when we wanted to cut the hedge last weekend, all we had to do was to move the pots out, had complete access to the hedge, and then of course the pots could go back. I've recycled some old potting compost bags to put over the soil as a sort of weed suppressing membrane, and then you can just stand things in their season. As it happens, the Agapanthus are in really full bloom now, and of course once they go over, I can lift that out and move, say, a pot of chrysanthemums or something else in through the winter. But of course with my decorating, it's not just instant colour, but I'm also trialling and testing all kinds of new plants that are coming through to us bit by bit. For several years now I've had the Chinese privet, Ligustrum sinensis. That's a really good container plant, evergreen, has that lovely lime green to yellow foliage, and that's one of the sort of exclamation points in the bed. There's a completely new Allium that flowers pretty well non-stop from May to September, and we hope to launch that at the Chelsea Flower Show. It's not a bulb, it's herbaceous, and so it just keeps flowering. And of course in the autumn or early spring I can split it, and most of these things I've bought or taken cuttings and had them as small young plants and then grown them on. The Hostas are a perfect example. I mean, the one there must be 5 or 6 years old. They love being grown in containers, and of course up off the ground it's a bit easier to keep control of slugs and snails. Deep down here at the centre I have a very good Coleus called Bonfire. I mean, that will be pretty attractive now until probably October, when we get frost, and then again it will need to be replaced. And the other hostas will similarly go yellow in the autumn and die down, and I'll need to bring in other things to give me winter colour. The silver-leaved Senecio angel wings, that's a really beautiful thing. That'll look attractive year round, and if you can bring it forward a bit so people can stroke it, it has a very soft touch, almost like velvet. There are 2 really big Pampas grass, and of course if they're put out in the soil, given time, they become very big and difficult to handle, but in containers much easier. These 2, as it happens, are variegated and reasonably compact in size, and we can of course position things as is suitable for them. In the shade I have the new fern, Jurassic gold, that loves that sort of position, and it'll be much the same sort of story with the Begonia, the Sweet Spice series. Might be better perhaps having it a little higher up, because in the afternoon it's quite nicely scented, but it does a very good job there at the edge of the border. Now you might say that my recycled compost bags, black side up, are not very attractive where they are exposed to view, But of course you can get a little bit of chipped or composted bark and use that as a decoration. Always important to separate the bark from the soil, because if there are plants growing in the soil like my multi-stem birch, then the bark absorbs a lot of nitrogen as it breaks down, and that tends to starve the plant. Now when you open some of those very colourful colour catalogues and you see magnificent borders, I'm afraid they're paint boxed because you have all of the seasons in one go. Here of course my garden decorating can move with the seasons, can change pretty well week by week. And when you have things that are fairly short flowering period, like these giant flowered lilies, well then if you buy them in threes, say 3 lots of 3, and you pot them at 4 weekly intervals in the spring, they will flower in succession, and so when one goes over you can lift that out and pop another one in its place. I hope this might give you a little inspiration and ideas as to how you might decorate any little spot, even tiny houses with just a bit of hard landscaping. If you have a few of the right kind of things in containers, they can make a very attractive show. Doesn't have to cost a fortune if you're patient. I mean, the Hostas came to me as little 11 centimetre pot plants, and now just look at them. They've grown into value and they give me enormous pleasure.